Howdy everyone, Pocher here with an Age of Magic video, and in today's video we are jumping into another Awakening covering, this time focusing on the characters from the Knights of the Councils receiving the level 8 skill. So the idea at the moment is we're going to cover every faction. After we've covered every faction and gone over what heroes are getting awakened, we'll then do videos on battle reports. It's the best way I think I can do it, and it spaces everything out the way I want it. So we'll get the information out first, then we'll do battle reports. So that is the current plan. And leave a link in the description below on what faction you want to see next. Not all factions are getting awakened. We're doing Knights. There is Cloud Wanderers, which are coming next. And then there's Orcs, Beastmen, and I believe the Van Norths. But there's not many in the Van Norths. We'll figure it out. But tell me what you want to see. So we'll go over the Knights, and we will start with Librarian, one of the all-time favorite characters in the game. With his basic ability, he is simply receiving a 20% damage increase, which isn't horrible. His basic does do a lot of damage, nothing wrong with it at all, and it's pretty straightforward. With Awakening basic skills, we're not going to see a lot of change, and to be honest, this is probably one area in Heroes you're not going to want to awaken early, as there are far more beneficial skills. So even though some may be good, the other skills will always outweigh what the basic abilities do. So moving into the second ability, the Forbidden Knowledge. Now we're getting 2 casts of Mirror of Darkness, which I think is pretty huge. Now, the downside to Mirror of Darkness is it's an 80% chance of landing. But if it does, you can have 2 turns of deflecting debuffs back to the enemy. So it has an 80% chance to cast Mirror of Darkness debuff on all enemies. While affected by the mirror, the debuffs cast by the target are reflected back on themselves. The mirror deactivates after being triggered. So it's going to last 2 turns now, which is fairly huge. It's just the 80% chance, just RNG. Honestly, this is the way it is, but what I would have preferred to see is it just lasting 1 turn, but this being a 100% chance, just getting rid of some of the RNG. But if you can land it, sorry, that's pretty good. The next part, 2 casts or 2 stacks cast on effect blocking the removal of buffs. So you're going to have 2 stacks now of protecting your allies from having buffs removed, which again is pretty strong. Honestly, if you're using this ability, I don't even think you're using it for the mirror. You're using it to protect buffs on your heroes. So that lasts 2 turns now. Well, not 2 turns, 2 attempts to steal. So that's pretty good. And then this part at the bottom, more stacks of magic power are added. So originally this ability gave 2 stacks, now it gives 5, which may seem huge, but there's also a change to the way stacks work as well, which we'll cover as we get to it. But 5 stacks, that's going to get that explosion going off pretty huge. But with Librarian, I find that you don't ever want to get to the stack overlap. You always want to trigger the explosion by yourself, like his third ability. When your stacks are high, you don't actually want it to hit 10 and then move over. You do far more damage with it up to like 7, 8, 9, even on 10, than you will ever getting it to 10 overlapping and it triggering itself. So this is going to allow you to get that huge damage out quite soon if you choose to go that path. Moving on to the next skill, his Explosion. So with this, we're getting more damage out of it, which is huge, and fewer stacks of magic power are removed. So this destroys all enemy shields, deals magic damage to all enemies, and if any enemy has a shield, the damage is critical. Yep, the Librarian does 25%. Irrelevant when Tristan is the leader. Lifts 1 magic power off the Librarian. So originally it lifted 3, so it's only lifting 1 now. So it's just a little bit of a damage increase and 1 stack instead of 3 stacks being removed, which is decent. Moving on to his passive, Magic Oversight. The magic power stack limit is increased. So in his original skill 7, the magic stack reached 10. It does not exceed 10. In the new one, it doesn't exceed 12. So you are going to get more damage out of him, assuming you can get to that 9, 10, 11 stacks and then explode, you're going to see a lot more damage. Damage received is reduced by 3% for every stack of power. So you can get to, if you're sitting on that 12 stack, that's 36% damage reduction, which is fairly huge, seeing as Librarian is quite a squishy character. So damage reduction, really, really nice for this character. And I mean, we're just going to see some crazy stuff with his explosion now. I find Librarian to be one of the best. Well, he's up there, not the best. There's actually really good heroes. Really, really good Cradle of Chaos hero. And it's going to be interesting. This actually affects him in both a positive and negative way, the 12 stacks, because there are some fights where you actually want to overlap and then move into the next wave and trigger the explosion with the 12 stacks. I think that's going to affect a few fights where that happens. So we're going to have to see what happens with those. But yeah, it's both positive and negative. You get more initial damage. It takes longer to actually get the overlap though. So Librarian, very interesting. I think, honestly, if I had to pick one skill to awaken on him, I really don't know. I mean, I think they're overall all pretty balanced. Probably this one. I think more utility would be really, really good. Just 2 stacks of keeping buffs protected. I think that would be really good. But overall, I mean, what do you want to build him as? I mean, eventually you're probably going to get everything awakened. But at the beginning, you can choose to go offensive or defensive. It's completely up to you. I think they're all really good. Basic, whatever. Overall, decent. Jumping into Brynhild, one of my top 5 favorite heroes in the game. I absolutely love her. I don't know why. I just think she's amazing, and her awakening is pretty decent. So let's get into it. Her basic damage is increased by 35%, 100% chance to cast and keep provocation. So as you can see, that her original basic has a 60% chance. That is now increased to 100%. That's what it means by keep provocation. So there's a 100% chance of provoking enemies and only attacking an allied light defender for 1 turn. This is probably one of the better awakenings for basics, because we've all battled Siegfried before. We all know the absolute iron wall that monster can be. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty decent. Pretty decent. Moving into her second ability, Shield Throw. Pretty straightforward. The number of random targets is increased. In the original one, it hits 2 additional random enemies. So 1, bang, bang. Now it hits 3. So 1, bang, bang, bang. And that's significant when you consider what her ultimate ability is when her transformation kicks in. I'll jog your memory when we get to it. Great Gunya, Awakening, damage is increased by 35%. Increase the number of times enemies can attack or otherwise deal damage when damage is limited. Damage will also be limited to 1 attack or instance of any or other damage type for other allied knights except Siegfried. So increase the number of times enemies can attack or otherwise deal damage. Oh yeah, so it's like Irazit's buff where you can only take so much of your max HP as damage. Originally it was 6 stacks, now it's 8 stacks for her and Siegfried. So again, mixing that with you're getting that taunt on Siegfried, you're also reducing the amount of damage he takes to 5% of his max HP. Moving on to her final ability, Love and Loathing. Duration of Valkyrie Wrath is increased. Seems pretty simple. You're like, oh, that doesn't seem too good. Valkyrie Wrath lasts 3 turns. Now it lasts 5. And what happens when she's in Valkyrie's Wrath? Brynhild's attacks don't miss and can't be dodged. All her attacks become critical and damage is increased by 100%. Battle Fury doesn't recharge during Wrath. She becomes an absolute damaging monster, and she already is. She is probably one of the scariest damage dealing characters in the game when she's in Valkyrie mode. And when that shield gets thrown out, oh, she's going to absolutely shred through enemies. It is a huge damage boost. That's 5 turns of guaranteed crit, 5 turns of being dodgeable. 5 turns of 100% damage increase. Yeah, I mean, we have to still see it in battle. I will get the battle reports out, but overall, she's scary now. I would be worried when this comes because she's going to take no hostages. She's there for kills. She's not playing sport. She's not hunting. She's straight up just going to absolutely massacre you. Finally, moving into Tristan, the leader. What is this bad boy going to offer you? We'll start with his basic damage is increased by 50%. If the target has no shield, the chance to deal critical damage is increased by 35%. So if the target has shield, damage is increased by 100%. Damage, yep. So it's just more damage, really. That's all. Pretty decent, especially when his basic deals damage to one target. Yeah, so he can hit multiple targets as well. So that's actually a fairly decent damage dealing AoE ability. Moving into his second ability on the side of the living, we have increases the number of turns when allies cannot miss or receive debuffs. So that goes from 2 turns to 3 turns. That's fairly decent. Higher chance of increasing allies' armor. So has a 50% chance from a 30% increase. Has a 50% chance per allied knight of the council to enhance the ally. Oh, I mean, has 50% chance per allied knight. It's going to exceed 100. Yeah, okay, so you're just going to get it. Originally, it was a 100% chance of assuming you had a full Knights team, but now you don't need to run it. Actually, now that I think about it, that's fairly decent, especially when there's a few squads out there that are Knight Cloud Wanderer hybrids that do very, very well. This has actually light allies. Yeah, so it's just going to, that's actually really good. That's going to make those teams a lot more useful. Right, okay. Moving on to Raging Spirits. So this is this is normally the ability you lead out with damage is increased by 30%. This is a really good damage dealing ability as well. Has a 50% chance to remove all buffs from targets. That's insane. If the target is a renegade, the attack ignores magic resistance. 50% chance to remove buffs. That's huge. It's an AoE ability as well. So I'm assuming it's going to check for each target. Or maybe it's just a straight up 50%. Either way, yeah, that's pretty good. You normally lead out with this, though. And he's normally going first in fights as well. So they don't normally have buffs on it. So it might actually change the rotation of how you use this character. But you normally don't lead with this for any other reason than to actually get this mark out. So Librarian absolutely tears through the enemy. Moving on to his leadership ability. I'm pretty sure this is his leadership ability. I think they've got, it's got the little spikes coming out of it. So get ready, ladies and gents. The HP of allied knights, except Siegfried, is increased by 30%, halved for other light allies. So all knights are just getting a 30% health increase. Obviously not Siegfried. That would be absolutely ridiculous. Absolute stupidity if Siegfried got that 30% boost. But I mean, Librarian becomes more tanky. Brynhild becomes more tanky. Jean becomes more tanky. And I mean, Jean is more damage dealing than she is healing. No, so to make her more defensive on the battlefield is a scary thought as well. Her kit is decent. Her kit is really good. So yeah, moving on to his passive now though. Reduces the number of touches required for possession. When possessed, Tristan steals more initiative from targets and his damage is increased by 25. I'm pretty sure that's meant to be 25%. His initiative increases from 25 to 40%. Reduces the number of touches required for possession. So each time the light ally receives, Tristan gains 1 stack when the number of 8 and 5. Okay, that's pretty decent. This is insane when he gets into his possession modes because they are old debuffs are removed from Tristan. The initiative is filled up to 100%. 3 turns while under possession. Tristan cannot stack. Yeah. He cannot be debuffed with magic abilities or marks. All magic damage received is reduced by 100%. I mentioned this in my Witches video. He just takes no... Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is different. That's actually very interesting. I'm not sure. I'd have to look into it. But Banshee had the awakened ability to damage through something. Her magic abilities could damage. I wonder if it still works on this. In my video with the witches, I said that she would be able to overcome this. But reading this, I don't know if she will be able to. All magic damage received. It's not fortification or anything. It's not magic defense. It's just a straight up all magic damage is reduced by 100%. So that's very interesting. I'd have to look into that. But yeah, he becomes fairly tanky when he goes into his possession state. Tristan's attack reduces initiative by 40%. Possession cannot be removed or blocked before it ends. So yeah, that's very interesting. I want to test that. I'm very curious about that. But there you go. Those are the 3 knights receiving a awakening at the moment. The others will come. I'm honestly scared for Siegfried. I wonder what is going to happen to him because at the moment he's an absolute menace of a tank in a Knights of the Council setting. But overall, I think fairly good awakening skills for these heroes. I think it's ramping up their damage a lot, and their survivability is insane. More HP, the damage reduction increase on Brynhild and the Librarian. It's very, very interesting. But there you go. Those are the 3 characters. Hopefully you like it. Again, I'll try and get some battle reports out when I can. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I will answer it to the best of my ability. And wherever you're around the world, until next time, please take care of yourself.